Welcome back to the monthly EVOG podcast. I'm Brian G, the EVOG, and this is episode 3 for the month of March 2024. Joining me again is my friend Adam from Adam's Everything EV. And man, so much has happened in, I'd say, the last month or so in the EV world. But Fisker continues to be the headliner, and it's for all the wrong reasons. You took delivery in the last month. In fact, right before, I believe, the going concern, right? The day before. So why don't we start there? How are you doing?
As far as myself, I want the community to know that I am in no dire straits at all. The first thing I said to my mom when I took delivery of this car was, I'm going to review it and I'm going to get rid of it. And obviously the second part of that is out. But otherwise, I didn't intend on this being a permanent ownership thing for me. Because of the videos I make, I want the community to know that I had experience with the car. So when I talk about it, there's a basis there. So I can say, I have owned it. I've lived with it. These are the realities. As far as, what all's happened and how I'm doing. Yeah, I mean, that was not, Bill said gut punch, but for me, I thought it was more of a face punch that I actually, I took delivery and I had a great feeling and an extremely pumped up attitude for exactly one day. But otherwise, I'm doing fine because my job with this is observe and report from an objective perspective. And so I really feel like it's my job to make sure that this community has the resources, the information, and the evidence they need to follow to be able to make decisions about what to do next. And this is my point of view. Obviously, some people bought this as their main car, and I have empathy there. But this is my 2023 Edsel. I'm going to take it to places. I'm going to go get ice cream once a week. I'm doing fine, and my job will continue to be observe and report for the sake of the community.
You're not on the forums, but I am. And one of the things that was mentioned on the forum, one of the forums that I'm in, is that our community is going to need each other more than ever moving forward, right? To your point, we're not really in a position to get rid of these cars. I mean, I couldn't sell my car or trade it in today, even if I wanted to. I don't have the title, which we'll come back to, right? But we need each other now more than ever. You were pretty prolific over the course of the last week plus with the number of videos, right? I counted at least 5, and that doesn't count the short. I had several thoughts about going out there and putting something out. As we were on that roller coaster over the course of the last week plus, I felt like it was important for me to just kind of take it in, right? Not overreact and kind of put my thoughts together. And one of the thoughts that I had, and I can kind of see it, I don't know if you agree with this or not, in terms of the content that you were providing and others and what I saw in the forum, it's like we're all going through the 5 stages of grief, right? That's kind of what it felt like. And those 5 stages are denial, right? And I think the denial aspect of it has to do with what I call affirmation versus information, right? We spend so much time looking for affirmation versus information. But when we start to look at the information that's out there and some of the, mismanagement, if you will, that introduces another stage of grief, which is anger, right? Where when you look at that information, I thought you did a great job of that with the Glassdoor video where you just read some of the comments there, right? And that's when I found myself getting angry at some of the decisions, some of the, it felt like incompetence, right? That led to some anger. And then I saw myself and others in the community in the bargaining phase of grief, where it's like, please, can I get 2.0? right before they, cease to exist, close the doors. Can I get an extra key fob? Can we get the package items for Fisker Ocean 1 owners that supposedly is in deferred revenue on their books, right? So that's the bargaining phase of things. And then there's a sense of depression where you're feeling, to some degree helpless, right? Feeling duped by the Fiskers. In mine and in many cases, you don't have your title or registration like we talked about. So, resale value or trade-in value, it almost doesn't matter because there's nothing we can do. We're kind of stuck in suspended animation until we get the title. And then once you have it, are we really going to trade it in, or are we really going to look to sell it and take that big of a loss? That becomes the question. And then, of course, long term, when you start to look beyond the horizon, what's going to happen in terms of service and support? So again, just a ton of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And I think ultimately, as you work through all of that, you get to the last stage of grief, which is acceptance, right? We're going to accept our reality. And as I mentioned in one of my last videos, I'm just going to enjoy this vehicle for as long as I possibly can. I did ultimately get version 2.0. I got part 1, and I'm assuming early next week I will get part 2. But, now I can see the solar sky statistics. So I'm in a place of acceptance. I saw some affirmation as it relates to that in your last video, where someone made mention of the fact that all automakers, well, I shouldn't call it a fact because we don't know it to be a fact, right? That all automakers have to have a slush fund set aside to address warranty, repairs, and have spare parts, right, on hand to address customer needs, even if they go bankrupt. I'm not sure how valid that is, particularly with a Chapter 7, where you liquidate and you go away. Perhaps with Chapter 11, that opportunity remains there. I'm remaining hopeful that that's something that could come to fruition. And, and when I do get the title, I just don't think there'll be enough value coming back. So I ultimately feel like the vehicle will be worth more to me to ultimately keep it. So I don't want to speak for you, but as I was looking at your content, and there was a lot of it, it was cathartic, and it felt like, we're working our way through these phases of grief. And I don't know if you felt like, you got some cathartic benefit out of doing the content that you did over the course of this week. It certainly looked that way with Bill on Monday.
Basically, I appreciate your point of view, and I think a lot of the folks in the community are doing the same thing. You're going to sit back, you're going to take it in, try to work your way through those stages at whatever pace you need. Everybody's different. This is what a counselor would tell you, but I do feel like it's true. But my job was observe and report. I wanted there to be some place for the community to go every single day, or at least, I think I almost hit every single day, something to look at that was real and published, and, let people make a decision about what to do. As far as the bankruptcy, I'm right with you. Chapter 7, there's no chance. I mean, you're looking at, think about all those parts that Fisker chose not to use from Magna. Every one of those parts is never going to exist anywhere ever, unless they tear apart existing Oceans. So like the vent thing, I'm sure the entire assembly for the doorknobs and the key fob, all that stuff, it's just going to be what it is, and those are going to be DIY solutions by experts that are within the community and willing to share their knowledge. But I'm hoping Chapter 11 happens, because that's when the protections kick in. That's when the first decision they make is for the owners. But if they do some off the books, under the table sale to some other company, we're all going to suffer. And if it goes to Chapter 7, which I had a very long conversation with my family about this today. What is there to sell? If they liquidate their inventory, what do they have to sell?
So this is where the asset light model, where you don't have as capital intensive a process, right? Where you're building factories, learning how to build vehicles. We're talking, hundreds of millions of dollars at that point, if not in the billions to do that. Instead, you're focusing on your core competency of design for automobiles, which is what Henrik Fisker is legendary for, is automobile design, right? He's great at that. So in this model, we felt like you get to focus on that while you outsource to Magna to do what they do well, which is build quality vehicles, right? So that's the upside of it, but it becomes a double-edged sword in that when you're in a predicament like Fisker is in right now, and you're looking at bankruptcy, you're looking at buyout, you're looking at getting an investor, well, they tend to invest in assets. And what are the assets that Fisker has to offer? And that's where it gets tricky, right? Because we don't know where Fisker's IP around design stops and Magna begins, right? So I think that makes it really, really difficult for Fisker, to climb out of this. The patient is very much on life support. Some might even say patient is in a coma, but they're not dead yet.
Yeah,
it could be a matter of time.
If I can interject right there, I have to do this regularly just to make sure that people who don't watch every video that you and I are in, make sure that they hear it. The employees are not the problem. Shouts to the employees. Make sure you treat these people well. They treat us well. And they are few and far between, and all of them are worried, but they have always done a good job. And any of their shortcomings are basically a result of this management process. I want to interject there and let you know that.
I'm glad that you brought that up, because that's a really important point. The folks at Fisker, when I think about, and we just talked about the patient being in the coma, right? I'm going to call this signs of life, if you will. And it starts with what you just interjected with there, Adam, and I'm really glad that you did, because that's one of the signs of life that I see, right? I had a situation, plugged in the parking garage, come back to the car, hour and a half later, can't get the plug to disengage. So I called the Fisker support line. He had helped me resolve the issue. And we had a conversation about, because I asked him, hey, how's everything going? And the positivity, and the first thing he said was, look, we're all working hard. He didn't put it in context of me or himself. He said, we're working hard every day to take care of our customers, right? We're trying to control what we can control, and that's what we can control. So that was really good to hear, that the level of positivity coming from them. I talked to my service tech late last week and got the same thing. It was like, man, I'm here for the duration. As long as they pay me, I will continue to help our customers, because I love what I do. I love engaging with Fisker customers. I love helping them. I love being able to go out, travel to see, because it's an interesting group of customers that we have. He's really enjoying working at Fisker. So these are folks that took a chance just as we did, right? And they're in a very tough spot every day, dealing with all of the negativity and the reality of where the company is. So that's one of the primary signs of life that I'm seeing. The employee sentiment is huge, right? I've also seen, parts being delivered to my house. I got new mud flaps delivered. My tech came out and installed that stuff. We're seeing people get their vents replaced on a daily basis. So service and support is still very active. Now, you got a ton of people calling in to the support line, so it's harder to get through over the course of the last week or so. So I sent an email in, got a response immediately with my ticket number. But before we get too long on this podcast, I do want to go back quickly, Adam, to the fire sale, if you will.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Okay. I've had a lot of feedback. The reason I posted these videos as well is because sometimes some people, I think, use my comments section as a forum. And as far as the information I have, there are maybe a dozen sports total that were for sale in this fire sale. Next, all of them are gone. If you see a video that says the Ocean Sport is now 25, the Ocean Sport disappeared instantly.
One of the things that, and I follow this under Signs of Life as well, right? That in Fisker's post, I saw one of the signs of life in terms of they finally talked about being committed to customers. They talked about 2.0 is rolling out and they're going to get it to every single Ocean customer. And they also talked about continuing to provide mobile service, which was validated when I talked to our mobile service tech, right? So there were some signs of life there. But certainly if you can find an Extreme or an Ultra at those price points, it's at least something to think about. Now, I wouldn't recommend anyone buy any of these vehicles at any price, given the uncertainty of support or service. And this will be my last point on the fire sale. If you're going to do that, one of the things that you have to do is give customers, dealers, give the public a reason to trust you, right? And that is my going concern with Fisker right now. There's a crisis of trust. And one of the quotes that I'll put out there is that trust is built with consistency and transparency. And we've not seen either of those things from Fisker ever. I've made other videos where I've said pointedly, right, they're not as transparent as they could or should be. And there's like no consistency at all from this company. So in the absence of that, it makes it really tough, right? We talked about competence being a concern as to why we perhaps can't trust this organization. And you can point to examples around the 10K filings or lack thereof. We can look at some of the things that have been reported most recently here about lost payments, right? Not being able to find customer payments, having to have them, and I guess, what was it, Motor Trend? What was the auto outlet that bought an Ultra, paid for it, and then
they lost the payment.
Was never, yeah, they lost it. They had to resend the payment for that vehicle, right? These things go directly towards competence. The fact that I'm coming up on 6 months of ownership and still don't have registration and tags and so on.
That's exactly what I feel the exact same way. And that's why I'm thinking chapter 7 instead of 11. And I know I mentioned 11 in the past, but any amount of asset that Fisker has is completely and totally overblown or undervalued compared to their goodwill, which is so negative. I feel like you can't save it. Goodwill used to be an asset you could put on the books, but people were abusing it, in international accounting standards. So it's no longer an asset on the books, but it's still a real thing. And Fisker's is way negative and probably impossible to solve at this point. So I agree 100%.
Yeah, so I guess we'll have to see. I don't know. I guess I'm a little bit more of an optimist than you are at this point, Adam. I think because for Henrik Fisker, this is his last shot, right? He's never going to have an opportunity to be a CEO ever again, right? If Fisker can't find a way to keep moving forward, this is the end of it for him. Maybe somebody will bring him in as chief designer or to work as a part of a design team, but that's about it.
I appreciate the optimism. I really do. And because people need it. And I'm not here. I am here to be this person. I'm here to say, I'm the owner, but I have a pessimistic point of view, because even if you are an optimist, you need to understand that there's another side to it, because there are many of those people out there that I really still want to believe in this company.
That's a great point. But I want to make sure people don't get the wrong impression. I'm not suggesting that anybody believes in this company. I don't believe in the company, to be clear. And I don't recommend that you go out and buy this vehicle. If I had to do this all over again, I wouldn't do it. Knowing what I know now, when you know better, you do better. Yeah, so I guess we'll see. As I said, trust is one of those things that's earned with consistency and with transparency. So for our fellow Fisker Ocean owners out there, I would say it's always darkest before the dawn, but it's also sometimes darkest before the lights completely shut down, right? And you go out of business.
And on the other side of that, like, I'm not telling people that, I drive your Fisker off a cliff or, abandon everything immediately. But at the same time, we need to approach this with an aura of skepticism towards the company. The cars are actually pretty good. I still like the car, and I still enjoy when I get to drive it.
Getting back to our Fisker Ocean One owners, you got to enjoy your ride from an acceptance stage of grief, where hopefully most of us are right now. Enjoy the ride. If you can't, open a ticket. And mobile service techs, as we talked about earlier, they are the very best representation of what we all thought that Fisker would be, right? So give them an opportunity to make it right and get your vehicle back to a place where you can get back to enjoying it. So
yeah, and I definitely agree. I think that you should also understand that this is a time of difficulty for basically everyone in Fisker. They're losing employees, and there's an increase in concern, which is not great for volume. And with that in mind, opening a ticket is good, but if you have any additional steps you can take, if you have another point of contact, if you know somebody you can talk to, if you know another owner, find out what they did to get an appointment.
Right.
Correct.
Right now, as we talked about, the phone line is overwhelmed with all of the calls coming in, and there's probably been some folks laid off that were in those roles, right? What I found to be really, really effective is to email the support line, because it goes into their CRM, it auto-generates a ticket, and that ticket, at least in our case here in the DMV, typically gets sent to our local techs, who will then reach back out, schedule an appointment, or give you a call to resolve whatever the issue is. So
imagine if they started delivering the Ocean right now. Imagine the very first Oceans anybody saw were full 2.0.
The Ocean is not the issue. The Ocean is a solid vehicle, and as it gets warmer and I'm able to put it into California mode and get out there, and as the software gets better with 2.0 and so on, and we know that 3.0 is active in Europe right now with at least some owners, right, testing 3.0. So there's still software development that's taking place, right? There's an opportunity for our vehicles to even get better than what they are now, and many of us absolutely love driving these vehicles. So anything can happen, right? We don't know. It may just be turn out the lights situation, or it might be something that prolongs it. It might be a takeover. It might be a sale. As you can see, there's still a little bit of optimism that I'm carrying here. So we'll see what happens, and anything can happen. So I'm going to let it play out, and I'm going to continue to enjoy the ride with this vehicle.
In my opinion, the worst thing that can happen is that they're still in charge.
That's the reality of where Fisker is. There's a crisis of trust.
I think that this has been extremely insightful. Brian, thank you again for having me on the podcast. I'm gonna throw it to you to close it out, but I appreciate you very much. This was really helpful for me, and I hope the community as well.
Thank you very much for watching. If you learned something, if you gained a new insight or found any of this interesting, please like, subscribe, definitely comment and share the video.